Bueller, Bueller, Bueller.
Don't be that guy. Welcome back to another book review. Today I'm going to be reviewing one of my favorite books and favorite authors. They're actually brothers, and the name of the book is Made to Stick, and this is by the Heath brothers. They have written other books that maybe you've heard of. I love their writing style. It's always well researched. And there's a lot of concrete examples that makes it easy for the reader to understand what they're saying and apply. So this one is Made to Stick, and the whole idea of the book is, why do some ideas survive and others die? So if you are giving a presentation in any way, shape, or form, whether you're a pastor, whether you are a parent that wants your message to stick in the mind of your children, then this is a book for you. It applies generally to a broad audience, and it's something that I try to use and implement in my ministry, in my daily life. So what they do is they give a model. It's called the success model. And the success model is simple, unexpected, concrete, credible, emotional, and stories. Now, before we start, I'm going to tell you a story. When I was at Northminster Presbyterian Church, I was there working, and I worked really hard through seminary, and then I worked really hard to go through the ordination process. And so on the day of my ordination, I was reflecting because I knew I would have a chance to talk to the congregation. And I just started thinking about all of the different things that I have started in my life, but maybe never completed. And I started thinking about the time that I was really into golfing. And if you know me, you know that that's a scary thought. And I'm betting that even if you're watching these videos and you don't know me, you know me through the videos, you probably think that's a scary thought. Anthony Cloditis on the golf course.
Why didn't you just go home? That's your home! Are you too good for your home? Answer me!
I started reflecting about fishing. There was a time where I was really into fishing, and it's not that I don't like fishing. It's something I'd like to get back into.
You and me going fishing in the dark.
But it was just another thing in my life that I started and then stopped. And I just went through so many things. And I thought, man, you know, the one thing that has remained faithful is God in my life. And I thought about, you know what, I'd like to share that. Now, as I was leaving the house, I went through my garage, and there I saw a fishing pole in the corner, and I saw some golf clubs, and I said, you know what, instead of telling the people, why don't I show them? So when it came time for me to share during the ordination ceremony, instead of just telling them, I went down from the pulpit and down on the floor, and I started to tell them. I grabbed a golf club, and I shared how this is something that I started and didn't finish. Then I grabbed a baseball mitt and a baseball, and I explained how this is something I started and didn't finish. And I went through so many different things with them that day. And the last thing that I told them was the difference with Jesus is the roles were reversed. It's not something I started, it's something He started, because faithful is He who calls you, and He will also bring it to pass. In other words, Jesus is the one that has His grip on Anthony Cloditis and not the other way around. And when you're in Christ, you're securely in His hands, and He won't lose any of His children. And that made a huge impact on the congregation. And it's still something that people think about and talk about to this day. Well, why did that make such a big impact? Why did that stick in people's minds? Well, it's because whether I knew it or not, I implemented some of the principles from this book. What are the principles? Number one, simple. You got to keep things simple. So many presenters want to jam-pack their presentation with everything in the world and are trying to make themselves look smart or be impressive. Look, that doesn't work. You have to keep things simple. In the Bible, one of the most famous passages is Psalm 23. And I'm guessing you've either memorized that or you've heard it at a funeral or or maybe this is the first time you're hearing it. If it's the first time, go and read it. But what you're going to find is it's extremely simple. There's short thoughts all through it. There's simple wording all through it. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. It's that basic rhythm all throughout it. It's simple. It's easy to remember. And that's part of the genius behind it. So one of the ways to make your message stick in people's minds, keep it simple.
Let's keep it simple.
Second is unexpected. Think back to my ordination. It was unexpected. So people knew that I was going to speak, but as I went and pulled out a golf club, and when I pulled out a baseball, and when I pulled out, a fishing rod, nobody knew that I was going to do that. So it was unexpected. Because it was unexpected, it was sticking in people's minds. It stood out to them because when they went into church that day, they never thought that was going to happen. Okay, the next thing you want to do, number 3, is you want to be concrete. You want to have information that's familiar with people. You don't want to be a scientist and go out there and use all of these different things to try to impress your audience, because what's going to happen is you're going to lose them. You want to use concrete images and concrete ideas that someone can grab onto. Fourth, you want to be credible. You want to use credible sources. You want to use things that people know are truthful and authoritative. If you're going to go up there and make a presentation, and if you're going to go up there and pour all your time into trying to persuade people, then the sources you should use, they ought to be credible. They have to be things that people know are truthful. Because if you don't, you're going to be creating a dissent in people's minds. Okay, the next thing is emotional. And this is a funny one because some of us are more emotional than others. Different cultures are more emotional than others. The point is that you, if you're presenting, if people see that throughout your message, you're not emotional about it, that it doesn't grip you, then people are going to start to wonder if you really believe it. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to go up there and scream and yell the whole time.
Now you kids are probably asking yourselves, hey Matt, how can we get back on the right track?
But if you give a 10-minute presentation, you can't just be stoic the whole time. The movie that I think of is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Do you remember when he's in class and you hear the teacher going,
Bueller, Bueller, Bueller?
Yeah, don't be that guy. Okay, the last one is stories. You want to tell a story. Stories are universal and they're so powerful. I started this series off today with a story. And the reason why I did that is because stories stick in people's minds. It's a way of dressing up your facts and making it real for people. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you a couple ideas of using the success principles. Now, when you present, what you want to do is you want to try to stack as many as possible. In all likelihood, you're not going to ever use all of these. So you may ask yourself, okay, how can I stack them? How can I grab 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 and use them? Because the more you use, the more powerful it will be. So here's an example. I'm going to show you a newspaper ad. Now, if you're a parent and you have a teenager that's going to start driving, you're nervous about that. You're concerned about that. So you spend a lot of time teaching them about the dangers of driving. Well, I saw an ad. This is from the Wall Street Journal, and I've kept it. It's from Wednesday, June 29th, 2011. Now, here's the ad that they printed to help kids understand the dangers of drinking and driving. I'm going to show it to you, but it's also going to be on the screen. It says, this year, thousands of teen drivers will end up as passengers. Be the voice they no longer have. So in it, you see a Hearst. And what they did is they made a very compelling message. They used something simple. This year, thousands of teen drivers will end up as passengers. True. But the twist is that they're dead in a Hearst. And so the whole idea is don't drink and drive. So they could have just said, this year, thousands of teen drivers will end up as passengers. Or they could have said that don't drink and drive. They could have just printed that. But they used the success model. They used the made to stick ideas to make it more compelling. Another thing that illustration that I've heard. Now, I didn't witness this, but I've heard about it. I heard of a pastor one time giving a eulogy. And the person that died was a person that he was elderly, and he was riddled with pain throughout his life. He had different ailments. And after everybody shared, the last thing that the pastor did is he went around to the pulpit, and what nobody knew was there was a cane. All right? So he pulled out a cane, but what he did is he sawed through the cane so there was only like 10% left in it, holding it together. And as he spoke about this man's life, he talked about the hope of the resurrection. He talked about the hope of being with Jesus and that this man is now healed. But what he did is he took that cane and he snapped it over his knee when he ended. That was a moment that was never forgotten. Now, why was that so sticky? It's because he used these simple methods in the book. It was simple. It was unexpected. It was concrete. It was credible. It was emotional. And it was a story. You see, he could have just said that he's going to be healed when he sees Jesus. But instead, he did something even more powerful. Again, this is something that people talk about to this day. So I want to end with a story of something that I did in the very, very beginning of my ministry. And again, I was young, and it just happened. But as I look back, I see why I got the results that I did. So it was a youth Sunday, and I was brand new at my new church, and I wanted to share about the struggles that teenagers go through. So I started off the sermon with all kind of statistics, and I did something like, by the end of this sermon, this many teenagers will commit suicide, and by the end of this sermon, and I just kept going through that. And at the time at the church, there was a fellow that cleaned the church, and he was a Christian, and he would always talk with me throughout the week about what my sermon was going to be. And I kept on telling him that, I feel like kids today are drowning. So he had left a life jacket by my desk that week. And he said, hey, look, if you need this, go ahead and use it. But as he was home, he said, I can't stop thinking about the idea of drowning, so I'm going to leave this for you. So the day of the sermon, I took that life jacket and I put it behind the pulpit. And I had no idea if I was even going to use it. But at the end of the sermon, I grabbed the life jacket and I walked from the pulpit and I walked to the middle of the church and I walked down the stairs and I stood in the middle of the sanctuary. And I grabbed that life jacket and I looked at someone in particular, and it's funny, I'm not going to name the names, but I remember the people to this day. And I looked at her and I said, do you know anyone that's drowning? And she said, I do. Then I walked a few more feet and I looked to the other side and I said, do you know anyone that's drowning? And they said, I do. Then I walked a few more feet, and this time I was like 80% out of the church. And I asked another person, do you know any teenager that's drowning? And they said, I do. And I didn't know what to do at that point, so I just left the sanctuary. You could hear a pin drop. And then what happened that day has never happened to me before, and I didn't expect this. I started hearing, and everybody in the church gave a rousing applause and stood up and applauded the message. Now, as I reflect, the reason why that was so powerful is because I made the message extremely sticky. Sure, I started off with statistics, but stats don't move people, okay? It was simple, it was powerful, it was unexpected, it was concrete, it was credible, it was emotional, and there were stories. And so what you want to do, if you want your message to go far, if you want your message to stick in people's minds, to be planted in their hearts, then I strongly suggest you check out Made to Stick. It'll make a big difference in your life. All right. I hope you're enjoying these videos. If you are stopping by for the first time, click the subscribe button. We have a lot more information just like this that's going to go out and bless you and help you. There's also a little bell you can click. That means every time we release something, you're going to get a notification. If you have subscribed, then do us a favor. Share this. If it's blessed you, then the chances are it's going to go out and bless other people. All right, this is Anthony Cloditis here at Faith Pres signing off. I hope you have a great week. See you next time.